Hello, in this video I'm going to demonstrate cloning of Java objects. Let's take an example by beginning with a project. We'll call it as using clones. I'll create a program under code.vinod package and add a main. In order to clone an object, we need a class of which we create an object and clone it. So we create a new class called person under entity package. Let's create a couple of data. So we'll say here private string first name, private string last name, and then private string city. We'll add a default constructor and we will also use a parameterized constructor. Once we got it, so let's go add some setters and getters. And we'll also print the result of this person object using a toString in this fashion. So let's go to a program to see how can I clone an object. First, let's go and check it out by creating a person p1 equals to new person, and I can use my name as parameters and of course the city, and then I'll say let's print p1. Now this is the result of printing p1, so I got the first name, last name and city. Now in order to clone, if you look at the object class, the object class has a member called clone, a member method called clone. So if I look at the object class, you'll see that there is a function called a clone, but that is not shown here because I'm only displaying the public members. By clicking on this button, I am now going to show all the methods including clone. And you can also see that clone is a protected method. That's why it is in yellow color. And then there is a n attached to that, that is a native code. So when I double click this, it will take me to the place where you can see that it's a native code, meaning the actual code is there in the native language like C++, and it returns an object after cloning. Now let's see if I can use this. Now I cannot say person p2 equals to person p2 first, and then I'll say p2 equals to p1.clone. Now note that the method is protected, so unless I'm in the I'm going to override that and expose that, I will not be able to access this at all. So there is no method accessible. So I have to go back over here, write a function, probably call it as duplicate or create another object or replicate or something, and then override, then call the superclass method. For example, I'm going to go type here public person, I'll call it as replicate, and then I will say return clone. Now note that from this particular class, I can actually clone and return an object. Of course, the return value of clone is java.lang.object, whereas I am assuming that it is a person. Now I can change this to object, so the error should be removed, or basically it is about exception, I believe. So you can see it is about exception. The second thing is that if you have it as person, you may have to cast it as add cast to person. After adding, you still have to say, hey, there may be a clone not supported exception. Let's find out that exception a little bit later, but let's just go and say now probably add throws declaration. So note that there is a automatic throws class added over here, and let's leave that. Now that we got here that a replicate method, I can go to the program 01. I can say we already have a p1 object. I have not created a second object, but I'll say p2 equals to p1 dot replicate. Now that I can call replicate, because the replicate method says throws clone not supported exception, now we have to handle it, and in a simple scenario we can simply say add throws declaration, so that's thrown away. So that means whoever is calling this main function will have to handle that, and that is JRE, and we are okay with that. But anyway, we got this replicate. Let's see if we can print out this and see if that is same or not. Now, here is a very important observation, and maybe after execution I'll explain. When I execute this, we get first object printed with the second one got an exception that says clone not supported exception. Now, what is the meaning of this? Now, when we try to call this replicate function, the replicate function is calling the clone function. The clone function examines this class and checks if the author of this class has allowed anyone to clone it or not. Now this is more like a marker that does it carry that kind of information. So is the author okay for this object to be cloned? Now for this to work properly, now you have to add one implements here. So we say implements clonable. Now the clonable is from java.lang package, so there's no need of any import as such. But as you can see, this does not impose any methods for us, but it simply carries that meta information and additional information that an object of person class can be cloned. So the JRE now has a full permission from the author that the person object can be cloned. Now there is no change required in this replicate function, and that is okay. Here is also fine. When we execute this, you can see we got two different objects. If you want to know are the two different objects are the same, you can always check by printing their hash code values, or you can even check system.out.println p1 equals to p2 is, and then I'll type p1 double equals to p2. Now obviously if they are of pointing to the same object, that will return true, but otherwise it's going to say false. And as you can see, p1 double equals to p2 is false, which means they are two different objects, but their values are identical. Obviously, we should be able to see dot equals. However, I have not overridden the equals, so I'll just check that out anyway. P1 dot equals P2 is, now right now it is going to give false itself, equals P2. Before running, we will also override the equals method. The equals method, I can get this from source, generate hash code and equals, say okay. If you don't want the hash code method, we can get rid of that. That's not a problem. Save it. And when I execute this, p1 dot equals p2 is going to check individual members of p2 and p1, and that's going to give you true now. So that is how you do cloning of objects in Java.